I remember the first time I laid eyes on the old Victorian house. It stood at the edge of the town, nestled in a thick shroud of ancient trees that seemed to whisper secrets in the wind. The real estate agent assured me it had character, but as I stepped through the creaking front door, I couldn't shake the feeling that the house itself was watching me. The interior was dimly lit, even in the middle of the day, with a pervasive mustiness that hung in the air like a heavy curtain. I began exploring room by room, my footsteps echoing through the empty halls. Each room seemed to tell a different story, the fading wallpaper and peeling paint revealing glimpses of the lives that had once inhabited these spaces. But it was the grandiose ballroom that sent a chill down my spine. As I entered the ballroom, the air grew colder, and an unsettling silence settled like a weight on my shoulders. The room was vast, with a grand chandelier hanging from the ceiling like a specter, casting eerie shadows across the worn wooden floors. I could almost hear the faint strains of a long-forgotten waltz, carried on a phantom breeze. I quickly dismissed my unease as the product of an overactive imagination and proceeded to set up my new home. But as the days turned into nights, things began to take a sinister turn. The whispers of the trees outside grew louder, and strange echoes seemed to reverberate through the walls. I told myself it was just the old house settling, but deep down, I knew it was something more. One night, as I lay in bed, I heard footsteps in the hallway. I brushed it off, thinking it was just my imagination, until the footsteps stopped outside my bedroom door. My heart raced as the doorknob turned slowly, almost as if someone was testing it. I held my breath, paralyzed with fear, until the door finally swung open with a creak. There was nothing there, just an empty hallway bathed in moonlight. I convinced myself it was a trick of the mind and forced myself to sleep. But the disturbances continued. Objects would move on their own, whispers grew louder, and shadows danced along the walls. I began to feel a presence, an unseen watcher that followed my every move. I considered leaving, but something held me back. Perhaps it was the challenge of confronting my fears, or the stubborn desire to conquer the malevolent energy that seemed to seep from the very walls of the house. One evening, as I was reading, I heard a faint sobbing coming from the corner of the room. I looked around, my heart pounding, and that's when I saw her. A translucent figure, draped in a tattered gown, sitting in the armchair. Her eyes were hollow, and her gaze held a sorrow that cut through me like a knife. I tried to speak, but no words escaped my lips. As the figure faded away, a cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles and plunging the study into darkness. I stumbled out of the room, my pulse racing, and found myself standing in front of the ballroom once again. I stepped into the ballroom, my heart pounding in time with the haunting melody. The room seemed to come alive, the walls whispering secrets, the chandelier flickering with an otherworldly light. And there, in the center of the room, I saw her, the ghostly figure from the study, dancing alone in a trance-like state. As I watched, transfixed, I felt a pang of empathy for her. The sorrow in her eyes spoke of a tragic tale, a love lost in the shadows of time. I took a step closer, my own steps now synchronized with the ghostly waltz. And then, with a sudden jolt, I realized the truth. I was becoming a part of the haunting, trapped in a cycle of echoes from the past. Desperation gripped me, and I fought to break free from the dance. With every ounce of willpower, I tore my gaze away from the ghostly figure and stumbled backward. The music screeched to a halt, and the room fell silent. I rushed out of the ballroom, the memories of the haunting dance still echoing in my mind. On the night before I was set to leave, I found myself back in the ballroom. The chandelier hung still, and the air was heavy with an oppressive energy. The ghostly figure stood before me, her eyes pleading. Without a word, she extended a spectral hand toward me, a silent invitation to join her in the dance. But this time, I was prepared. With a mixture of fear and determination, I stepped away, breaking the cycle that had bound me to the haunting. The figure's expression shifted from sadness to a mixture of surprise and relief, and then she slowly faded away, leaving behind a sense of quiet emptiness. As I walked out of the house for the last time, I couldn't help but glance back at the old Victorian, its windows like vacant eyes watching me go. The echoes of the haunting would forever linger in my mind, a reminder of the inexplicable and the supernatural. And as I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that the house was finally at peace, its long-held secrets released into the night.